On that Sunday, Suzanne Morphew went out for a bike ride and never came home. No screams, no witnesses. But one thing was clear. Someone made her vanish. And it happened on the one day meant to be filled with love, Mother's Day. Visuals, wide shot of Colorado's untamed wilderness. Cut to a close-up. Her bike, abandoned near a steep slope. Her helmet spinning slowly in the wind. The bike looked tossed. Her helmet, found far away, dozens of yards from the road. No blood, no body. Just silence. Until, 3 years later, her bones turned up. Over 50 miles from home. Sun-bleached. And with no clues left behind. So what really happened in those missing years? And why was the only person with access to animal tranquilizers her own husband? Suzanne Morphew was a mother of two, living in a quiet mountain town in Colorado. She had soft brown eyes and dark hair she always tied back neatly for her morning bike rides. No one looking at Suzanne would have guessed she was battling lymphoma, a silent illness that slowly drained her strength. But every day, she pushed herself, climbing hills, pedaling through lonely stretches of red dirt roads on her familiar bike. To most, it was just exercise. To Suzanne, it was freedom, a daily victory over the sickness trying to take her life. Friends described her as a devoted family woman, never flashy, never complaining. A wife who once wrote handwritten letters just to hold her marriage together. A mother who smiled through exhaustion because her daughters needed her too. In a selfie video sent to a close friend just weeks before she disappeared, Suzanne said, "I know I don't have much time left, but I still want to make the most of every day." Barry Morphew, Suzanne's husband, was tall, muscular, and rugged. A true outdoorsman. He was used to hunting, handling animal tranquilizers, and navigating the wilderness like it was his own backyard. He had been a college athlete, ran his own landscaping business, and raised two daughters with Suzanne. On social media, Barry looked like the perfect husband, sharing photos of family picnics, hunting trips, and ski vacations. But there were signs that something wasn't quite right. Some neighbors said they heard arguments, that Suzanne had talked about spending some time apart, that something felt off, even if no one could say exactly what. And then, there was something Suzanne did, quietly, without telling anyone. Just 1 month before she vanished, she secretly backed up all her text messages and personal journal entries to a private cloud account. Maybe, deep down, Suzanne felt she needed to leave behind a trace. That morning, May 10th, 2020, started like any other. Suzanne sent a short text to her daughter, wishing her a good morning. Then she got on her bike, dressed in her usual workout clothes, and disappeared into the early Colorado breeze. Barry Morphew told investigators he was driving to a job site in Broomfield, over 150 miles from home, to deal with a work emergency. He said he left early, before Suzanne woke up. They didn't see each other that morning. But when their daughter couldn't reach Suzanne later that day, worry began to set in. No replies to texts, no calls back. Neighbors, when questioned, said they hadn't seen Suzanne that morning either. By that afternoon, police were called. The search began. Her bike was found first, down a small embankment, tangled in brush by the roadside. There was no blood, no sign of a crash. Just a bike, tossed in a way that didn't make sense. Then came the helmet, nearly 40 meters away, too far for a simple accident. And the most puzzling part, Suzanne's phone was still at home. So was her wallet. Who goes on a long bike ride without a phone? And if she planned to go somewhere, why didn't she tell anyone? At first, Barry appeared frantic. He cried in interviews, pleaded for his wife's safe return. But then came the hotel footage. Surveillance video from the hotel where Barry stayed in Broomfield showed something odd. In the early hours before dawn, Barry was seen circling his truck in the parking lot, over and over, opening doors, closing them, popping the trunk, walking around again. Detectives watched it on repeat. For 45 minutes, Barry never left the lot, just moved around the vehicle like he was, dealing with something. He tossed a trash bag into a nearby bin, then came back. When police checked the trash, it was empty. It had already been picked up. Back at the Morphew home, more questions surfaced. An unsent email from Suzanne to Barry, full of pain. She wrote about feeling lonely, controlled, suspicious. On her computer, investigators found evidence she had recently reconnected with a high school boyfriend. But still, there was no body, no weapon, no proof of a crime. just gaps in the story. And the more investigators tried to piece things together, the more those gaps seemed to grow. Colorado's small towns don't usually get shaken like this. Within 48 hours, volunteers started pouring in from neighboring states. People combed through every inch of the forest, every ravine, every creek near the Morphew home. They printed flyers, handed out posters, lined highways with Suzanne's photo. Even strangers felt something unshakable, like they'd lost someone they knew. A mother, a woman who mattered. Police brought in search dogs, drones, even cell phone signal experts. But everything led to the same place, nowhere. Barry didn't join the community searches. He said he was working with the FBI and that keeping quiet was necessary to protect the investigation. But those closest to Suzanne started asking questions. They said Barry didn't look like a husband in pain. He was cold, detached, distant. Their daughters, both teenagers, stayed mostly silent. The kind of silence that says more than words ever could. It felt like the whole town knew this wasn't just a missing person case anymore. If someone took her, why didn't anyone hear a thing? If she left on her own, why didn't she take anything? And if she's gone for good, where is Suzanne Morphew? A few weeks after Suzanne's disappearance, the FBI began collecting digital evidence. And the first thing that stood out was the timeline. Suzanne's phone last pinged around 4 a.m. that morning, far too early for a bike ride. But more alarming, the data showed her phone moving around the backyard, even though Barry claimed he'd already left the house hours earlier. It looked like someone was holding Suzanne's phone, or at least trying to make it seem like she was still active. Days later, the FBI obtained security footage from a house in the area. The image was grainy, but clear enough to show a truck matching Barry's near a public trash bin around 4 a.m. And that wasn't the only stop. Over the next 2 hours, the same truck appeared at no fewer than 6 different trash sites around town. This contradicted Barry's initial statement that he drove straight to the job site in Broomfield. Police suspected he was dumping something, but no one knew what. Things got murkier when people close to the family began sharing their own observations. One neighbor, Jean, who lived just a few houses down, said that morning was eerily quiet. No door, no bike, no usual goodbye sounds she often heard from Suzanne. A close friend of Suzanne's revealed something even more troubling. Shortly before she vanished, Suzanne had texted her saying, "I don't trust anyone anymore, not even the person sleeping next to me." Meanwhile, Barry's timeline wasn't matching up with GPS data from his truck. He claimed he arrived at the worksite by 7 a.m., but tracking logs showed his vehicle made multiple unexplained stops before that. No direct route, no clear destination. Detectives pulled footage from gas stations, convenience stores, parking lots, and each time the holes in Barry's story got wider. Then came another red flag. Barry refused to hand over his cell phone to investigators. When asked, he said he accidentally dropped it in water, just days after Suzanne disappeared. Digging deeper, the FBI found something telling. On May 10th, the very day Suzanne vanished, Barry's phone recorded a sudden purge. Text messages, call logs, and GPS apps all deleted. And then, the most damning discovery yet. A container of deer tranquilizer was found in Barry's garage. A type of sedative only used by licensed hunters. If he truly loved his wife, one detective asked, why was he carrying animal tranquilizer the night she disappeared? As the investigation stalled, a new lead emerged. From the last person Suzanne had contact with. It wasn't Barry. It wasn't her daughters. It was a man named Jeff, her high school sweetheart, now living in Michigan. Suzanne and Jeff had reconnected months earlier through Facebook. At first, it was innocent, just old friends catching up. But slowly, the messages became more personal. Suzanne told Jeff she felt controlled, like she was no longer herself in her own marriage. In her final message, sent the night of May 9th, she wrote, "Tomorrow I'm going for a bike ride like always. I need air. I need to think. But if anything happens, just remember I tried to speak." Jeff turned the message over to the FBI, and with that, the case shifted. From a missing person to a possible premeditated murder. It also explained why Suzanne had created that secret cloud account. She was trying to leave evidence. The FBI traced her phone and iCloud data. They uncovered voice memos, private recordings of Suzanne's thoughts. In one, she whispered, "I know he's watching me. I don't feel free. I'm scared." In another, Just days before she disappeared, she captured audio of an argument with Barry. His voice, harsh, threatening. "You think you can just leave me that easy?" This wasn't suspicion anymore. This was a quiet, desperate cry for help. And the question that now haunts the entire case is simple. If Suzanne's final whispers were true, who was listening? 3 months after Suzanne vanished, a secret grand jury was convened. After reviewing digital evidence, voice recordings, Barry's suspicious behavior, and especially the tranquilizer found in his garage, they reached a decision. Barry Morphew was indicted for first-degree murder. The entire community held its breath. Local news stations went live. Late-night broadcasts dissected every frame, every word, every appearance Barry made on camera. In court, the prosecution laid out their theory. Barry had discovered Suzanne's renewed connection with her old boyfriend. He felt betrayed, angry, and whether in a fit of rage or something premeditated, he took action. They presented GPS data from Barry's truck, played the hotel surveillance footage, let the jury hear Suzanne's whispers, full of fear. Then, they revealed their strongest piece of evidence, a stained glove found inside Barry's truck. On it, traces of DNA that partially matched Suzanne, but had been chemically scrubbed. It was damning. But then, everything shifted. The defense introduced a key challenge. GPS data, they argued, could be flawed. There was no body, no blood, and maybe Barry had been set up. A new line of doubt emerged. If Barry did it, why was there no sign of a crime at the house? No struggle, no foreign DNA? And if he used a tranquilizer, then where was the body? The court wavered. Public opinion split. Some believed Barry was innocent. Others saw him as a cunning killer. But everyone agreed on one thing. If Suzanne had died, her death was heartbreakingly silent. In April 2022, the case was officially dismissed. Prosecutors said they could no longer pursue charges against Barry Morphew, citing lack of a body and insufficient conclusive evidence. Barry was released. He walked out of jail in silence, then looked into the cameras and said, "I lost everything, and I still don't know what happened to my wife." The community was torn again. Some praised the justice system for upholding the principle of reasonable doubt. Others were furious. A woman was missing, and the man suspected most walked free. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, the FBI kept working. They re-examined the DNA on that glove, and what they found changed everything. That sample, once thought to belong to Suzanne, contained DNA from 3 different people. One of them belonged to an unidentified man. The DNA was submitted to CODIS, the National Criminal Database, and the result flipped the case on its head. A match to a suspect in an unsolved sexual assault case in Illinois. Suddenly, another possibility took center stage. Maybe Barry wasn't the only one who knew what happened to Suzanne. If Barry didn't do it, then who had been watching her from the shadows? News of the new DNA match spread fast, and a haunting question began to echo across headlines. Was this bigger than a broken marriage? The FBI expanded their investigation, digging into unsolved attacks on women in the area, and they found a chilling pattern. All the victims were women, all attacked while alone, all in remote, wooded areas near the same trails Suzanne used. They reopened an old case, a 2016 rape in Illinois. The victim described the attacker as a tall white man, reeking of chemicals with deep knowledge of terrain. His DNA matched the glove found in Barry's truck, but no one could identify him. He had never been arrested. Investigators began to theorize a different scenario. What if this was a predator? What if he had spotted Suzanne on her routine rides? What if he had stalked her for days? And on that Mother's Day, knowing Barry was gone, he made his move. This theory expanded the case, from a tragic family story to a possible targeted hunt. But one thing still didn't make sense. Why did Barry act so strange? Why didn't he join the searches? Why did he wipe his phone? Why the tranquilizer? It was like a maze with no way out. Every clue led to another twist, and each twist raised more questions than answers. Was this a meticulously staged murder, or a terrifying string of coincidences? If the truth isn't with Barry, and it isn't fully with this unidentified man, then what is still being hidden? In the fall of 2023, what seemed like a hopeless search finally led to a heartbreaking discovery. A crew working on a stone paving project in Saguache County, over 50 kilometers from Suzanne's home, stumbled upon human remains buried in the dry, cracked earth. The FBI rushed to secure the scene. Forensic tests confirmed the truth. The remains belonged to Suzanne Morphew. There was no more doubt. Suzanne was dead, but how she was found raised even more questions than her disappearance ever had. There were no broken bones, no gunshot wounds, no stab marks, no clear sign of how she died. What unsettled investigators most? Her remains had been buried hastily. No casket, no body bag, just a shallow patch of dirt. Barry, now living with his 2 daughters, responded publicly, "I'm relieved we finally found her, but I'll do whatever it takes to find out who really did this." Police made no arrests. Prosecutors declined to refile charges, citing lack of new, conclusive evidence from the scene. That decision enraged Suzanne's family, especially her brother. "We lost Suzanne twice," he said, once when she disappeared, and again when justice refused to stand up for her. Independent investigators began asking new questions. Why was Suzanne found in a place with no known link to Barry? Had someone else moved her body? Or was Barry not alone? Doubt spread like wildfire. Trust in the system cracked even deeper. Finding her body should have been the end, one journalist wrote. But in Suzanne's case, it was the beginning of something even darker. Then, just as public outrage reached a boiling point, Barry struck back. He filed a federal lawsuit demanding $15 million in damages for wrongful prosecution, unlawful imprisonment, and character assassination. In the lawsuit, Barry wrote, "I was a grieving husband turned into a monster by the media and a justice system that punished me for not reacting the way they expected." The filing went public, and the country erupted. Some called Barry a manipulator, cashing in on his wife's death. Others said, if he's truly innocent, doesn't he have the right to reclaim his name? Journalists dug deeper into sealed court records, and one revelation shook the case again. On May 10th, the day Suzanne disappeared, a traffic camera roughly 10 kilometers from their home captured footage of a man walking alone, wearing a hooded sweatshirt, dragging a large duffel bag, heading toward the mountains. The footage was grainy, his face unrecognizable, but the timestamp matched, and the path led directly towards Saguache County, where Suzanne's body was later found. When asked, Barry simply said, "I don't know who that man is, but I hope you'll finally investigate that instead of just chasing me." The lawsuit remains under review, and the public still divided. Some want Barry held fully accountable. Others, now unsure, begin to wonder, what if we got this wrong? Suzanne's death is no longer just a tragedy. It's a symbol of broken trust and of a question that still haunts everyone involved. In the end, who does justice really belong to? As the cameras fade and the news cycles move on to the next story, the name Suzanne Morphew still lingers, not just as a victim, but as a void that refuses to be filled. People hang her photo at candlelight vigils, lighting a flame each year on May 10th, the day she disappeared. But with each passing year, the silence only grows. No one's been convicted, no one held accountable, and the one question that matters most, who killed Suzanne, remains unanswered. Her 2 daughters, who once stood by their father's innocence, now choose silence. They stay out of the public eye, say nothing, post nothing. They go on with life, but no one knows what they truly carry in their hearts. Barry still lives in Colorado. He walks daily near the mountains, close to where Suzanne's remains were found. Some say they've seen him standing still for hours at a time, silent in front of a boulder, as if waiting for something that will never come. Life in Salida, the small town where all this began, appears to have returned to normal. But ask anyone who knew Suzanne, and they'll tell you the same thing. Something about this story never made sense. Suzanne's brother hasn't given up. He's pushed for the case to be reopened, gathered signatures, spoken to the media, written letters to the governor. But even he understands, when there's no body left whole, when too much time has passed, justice isn't always about right or wrong anymore. Sometimes it's about memory, and maybe that is the greatest tragedy of all. Suzanne once lived. She once loved. She once rode her bike beneath the Colorado sun. And now, all that's left are video clips, fragments of a journal, and a name people still search on Google. No resolution, no verdict. Just the ache of not knowing and a silence no one dares to enter. What about you? What do you think really happened on May 10th, 2020? Suzanne's final Mother's Day? Do you believe Barry is innocent? Or do you think someone else, a shadow in the dark, was silently watching and took her life? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you've ever lost faith in justice, if you've ever seen someone forgotten, type "me too," because Suzanne wasn't just a victim. She was a reminder that sometimes the quietest voices are the ones left carrying the heaviest silence.